Night. Out back, the party was already underway. My sister Jenna was radiant in her pressed dress uniform, boots polished to a mirror shine. Her posture had changed, straighter, more deliberate. You could tell she'd learned how to be seen. I hovered near the edge of the patio. My Aunt Cheryl spotted me and gestured toward the folding chairs. "Sweetheart, can you scoot over? That seat's saved for Lieutenant Monroe." I nodded and moved. No one offered me a plate. There was a display table set up near the garden wall. Photos of Dad in the Gulf, Grandpa in Korea, Jenna at her basic training graduation. I stood in front of it for a long time. Something felt off. And then I saw it. The frame I'd mailed home years ago, my commissioning photo from West Point, was gone. It used to sit dead center between Dad and Jenna. In its place was a Christmas picture from before I enlisted. We were all in sweaters. I remember that day. Mom had burned the ham and cried. Jenna had the flu. None of us were smiling. I stepped inside, found Mom at the kitchen counter arranging deviled eggs. "Hey," I said casually, "where's my old photo, the one in uniform?" She didn't even look up. "It was a little faded. I thought the Christmas one looked warmer, more recent." "Right," I said, my voice even. "More timeless." She laughed once, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Camille." I dropped it, because there was nothing else to do. Later, one of Jenna's friends cornered me near the drinks table. A freckled woman with a clipboard and a too bright smile. "So, what do you do now?" she asked, tossing the question like a frisbee she didn't care to catch. Before I could answer, Jenna called out from behind. "She used to be some kind of consultant, right? Strategic something?" I stared at her. She didn't blink. "Probably retired now," she added, sipping her punch. "Desk life suits her." Someone chuckled. "Hey, at least it's safer than the real thing." The laughter wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was casual. The kind you forget 2 minutes later because it wasn't meant to hurt, but it still does. I slipped away and found an empty chair near the back fence. Plastic, no name tag, no cushion. But the silence was better than the buzz. That's when a voice broke through the dusk. "Hawthorne. Camille Hawthorne." I turned. A man, retired colonel, by the bars on his sleeve, approached with slow certainty. His face was familiar, though I couldn't place it. "Langston Protocol," he said. "Tactical withdrawal plan out of Corridor 6. That was yours, wasn't it?" I hesitated. "I had a hand in it." He nodded. "Saved my niece's unit. Got them out with 27 lives still breathing. No one ever credited that." I shook my head. Credit wasn't the point. He looked at me for a long beat, then softly. "But sometimes silence feels a lot like erasure." That landed, because he was right. He walked away, no fanfare, just a quiet nod. And I sat there holding that moment like it was the only thing real in a room full of memory loss. I stared down at the cup in my hand. White plastic, no monogram, no name. And I whispered to myself, sometimes honor doesn't need a frame. But when someone finally speaks your name, don't flinch. The morning after the potluck, I woke early. The house was still wrapped in its post-party quiet, the air stale with leftover brisket and cologne. I padded into the living room, drawn by instinct more than intent. There, beneath the old display cabinet, our family's shrine to uniform and service, I found the blank space again. A faint rectangle of lighter wood. Dust untouched, except where a frame used to be. Mine. The bottom drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, mixed with dead batteries and faded ribbons, was the frame I'd sent from West Point. The photo was gone. In its place, the cardboard insert that comes when you buy it new. 2 smiling strangers posing for nobody. I held it in my lap like a forgotten relic. Proof that I had existed here once. Not erased, just shelved. Later that morning, Mom poured herself tea as sunlight angled through the blinds. I approached her gently. "When did you take my picture out of the cabinet?" She stirred her tea slowly, still looking out the window. "I rearranged things. Thought the wall needed some air. No one really notices stuff like that." "No," I said. "That's kind of the whole point. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. That evening, Jenna announced over dinner that her promotion ceremony would be held at the Fort Mason Officers Club. Private room, big turnout. "They've got a wall of honor," she said. "Photos rotate each week. Mine'll be up the whole weekend." Mom clapped politely. "That sounds lovely, dear." Then she looked at me. "Camille, if you're coming, wear something understated. You know, keep things simple." I smiled, or tried to. Wouldn't want to draw fire. I didn't say that I'd once briefed NATO commanders from an active combat zone while wearing body armor and 3 layers of dust. Here, even a gray blouse was considered too loud. That night, while folding laundry in the guest room, my phone buzzed. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. One message. "They're digging into Langston again. Your name's in the files. Be careful." I stared at the screen. That name, Langston, hadn't passed my lips in years. Not since the tribunal. Not since the silence. It was the operation that ended my career. The one I took the fall for. The one I buried. The next morning, I reached out to Sarah Brenner, a former data analyst from the Strategic Intel Office. We'd worked together on black box missions, the kind that vanish from headlines before the first body is counted. She didn't hesitate. I sent her the file I had stored from my tribunal, one of the only copies still in my possession. By noon, she called back. "Camille," she said, voice clipped. "The leak came through a National Guard server, specifically an IP tied to Jenna's device. 2 years ago. Archived ping just resurfaced." I didn't breathe. I didn't need to. The cold sat heavy in my chest. I drove to the base without calling ahead. Walked through the gates like I still had clearance. Jenna was in the break room, laughing with someone over a coffee cup. I didn't sit. I placed the report trace in front of her. "This is from your login," I said. Her eyes flicked down, then away. "I sent it," she admitted after a long pause. "Last year, I was tired. Tired of hearing about you. Everyone whispering about how perfect you were, even after you left. It was always Camille this and Camille that. I just wanted a version of my life without your shadow." Her voice cracked slightly. "I didn't know it would surface again. I thought it would stay buried." I stared at her, not as a rival, but as the girl I once taught to ride a bike. The one who scraped her knees and cried until I ran warm water over the wound and made her promise to try again. "You think I don't know what it feels like to be erased?" I asked. She blinked, hard. "The difference is, I never tried to erase you." She swallowed. "I was wrong. I know that now, but people still see you even when you're gone. I wanted to be seen first, just once." We sat in silence. I finally stood. "I'm not here for an apology," I said. "I'm here because someone just opened a file that could get a lot of people hurt. And if this gets spun the wrong way again, it won't just be me who goes down." She nodded. "What do you need?" "I need to know if you still want to be seen," I said. "Because this time, the lights will be real." We met in the back lot of the academy 3 nights later, under a sky cracked open by wind and the quiet hum of consequences. Sarah had retrieved something from a long dormant military archive, an audio file buried beneath 2 levels of encryption. She handed it to me in a battered USB case, wrapped in gauze like it had been wounded. "General Vaughn's voice," she said. "Langston protocol, rerouted without clearance. He bypassed chain of command." I listened once, then again. The file was clear. Vaughn giving a direct order to strike Sector 9, civilian presence acknowledged, collateral deemed acceptable. It wasn't just damning, it was doctrine breaking. I had pushed back on that order in a sealed briefing. I was overruled. And when the casualties became headlines, Vaughn stayed in the green zone while I stood in front of the tribunal and said, "Responsibility rests with me." That had been my last mission, until now. The annual Joint Strategic Summit was 2 days out. Arlington Hall. Vaughn would be there. Headlines said he was keynoting a panel on moral intelligence in asymmetric conflict. Irony isn't always subtle. Barrett, a former special ops colonel I trusted with my life, drew up the blueprint for a quiet breach. Rear entrance, During badge rotation, Jenna would attend the summit under the pretense of reinstatement review. She'd wear the transmitter. "It's risky," I told her. She shrugged. "So was following you into the woods with a broken flashlight when I was 6. We prepped all night. At 1600 hours, Jenna walked into Arlington Hall. Her posture was perfect, badge straight, device hidden beneath her name tag. Vaughn stood mid-circle, surrounded by brass and international delegates. He looked older, grayer, but the voice was still crisp with confidence. He greeted her like a friend. "Lieutenant Monroe," he said, "you remind me of your sister, always walking into rooms like she's got backup." Then, quieter, just for her, "You know why people like Camille are dangerous? Because they think truth is more important than clarity." Jenna gave the cue. I hit broadcast from the van outside. The room speakers popped to life. Vaughn's voice echoed. "Change the target zone. Civilian risk noted. Acceptable. Execute." Silence followed. Not the polite kind. The kind that breaks careers. Then, static. The feed cut. Someone had found the uplink. "Fallback line," I said to Ethan, my student, seated across from me. He was already on the relay box. Wires ripped out like veins. Before I could say anything more, a shot rang out. He staggered back, clutching his arm. Blood seeped through his jacket. I caught him before he dropped. "Stay down!" I hissed. He didn't cry out. He just whispered, "Don't let them win with silence." I squeezed his hand and ran. Backup feed initiated. Broadcast resumed. Vaughn's voice played again, this time without interruption. Inside, Jenna stood motionless. Vaughn turned pale. His lips moved, but no sound came. Delegates began shifting away from him. One colonel muttered, "Is that real?" Security swept in. But not for us. They surrounded Vaughn, and that's when I entered, not with triumph, not with vengeance, just with truth. We were escorted to a private room. No cuffs, just cold chairs, and a metal table that smelled like bureaucracy. Then Vaughn stepped in. "Camille," he said, forcing a smile, "I can still fix this. Your cadets go untouched. Your sister walks free. And you, walk away as a silent hero. History has a back door." I leaned forward. "I didn't fight for history," I said. "I fought for the people it forgets." He opened his mouth, but the door slammed open. Sarah stepped inside. Pale, thinner, but breathing. She placed the drive on the table. "Full logs," she said, "and the account transfers for Vaughn's advisory fund. African relief diverted. Orders altered. It's all here." Vaughn lunged, but Jenna stepped between them. "I used to be afraid of you," she said, "but not anymore. I took an oath, to truth, not to your legacy." Security moved in. Vaughn was removed. No shouting. Just the steady collapse of a man who thought truth was optional. Later, I sat beside Ethan in the ICU. Machines hummed like distant thunder. He was stable. He'd live. "He's not trained for this," a nurse said gently. "No," I replied, "but he understands it better than most." A week later, the Pentagon offered me reinstatement, full rank, strategic command, a seat near the top. I declined. I didn't need altitude. I needed clarity. I returned to the academy. Not because I couldn't rise again, but because I wanted others to rise first. I taught my cadets not just tactics, but ethics. Not just formation, but formation with conscience. One day, a new photo appeared on the bulletin board. Me, Jenna, Ethan, a handful of cadets. No stars on my collar, just arms linked, faces open. Someone had scribbled underneath in thick marker, "She didn't fight for attention, she fought for attention to the truth." That's all I ever wanted. Not applause, not medals, just memory that doesn't blink. Days after the dust settled, I returned to the house I hadn't stepped inside in nearly a decade, the place where my story began and nearly ended. The hallway shelf caught my eye. There, nestled between my father's medals and my sister's graduation photo, was a new picture of me in uniform. Not just any photo, one where I stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes steady. The frame was simple, unadorned, but it meant more than any medal ever could. Mom was nearby, folding laundry quietly. Her voice cracked as she spoke. I never knew love could be that silent and that cruel. I nodded, choosing not to argue or blame. I was here to lay down the burden I'd carried for years, not to reopen old wounds. The silence between us was a fragile truce, built on unspoken truths and tentative healing. My father, who had barely spoken to me since my discharge, approached slowly. He held a wooden box, worn, heavy with years. Inside a letter, dated 3 weeks after I left active duty. His handwriting was uneven but sincere. I didn't know how to say it then, he admitted. I was proud of you, even if I never showed it. I didn't read the letter there. Instead, I tucked it into my jacket, close to my heart where it belonged. Back at the academy, the weight of past battles lifted just enough for breath. Outside the lecture hall, a new photo hung on the bulletin board. Me, Ethan, and a handful of young officers, arms linked, smiling, not as a general commanding ranks, but as a leader guiding souls. Beneath the photo, someone had written in thick marker, "She didn't fight for attention. She fought for attention to the truth." And in that moment, I understood. Legacy isn't built by medals or titles. It's carried in the lessons people choose to remember. I walked into the lecture hall the next morning, the door closing softly behind me, like a seal on a sacred promise. No insignia on my collar, no spotlight, just a whiteboard and a room full of eager minds. This isn't a class about war, I began. It's a class about what happens after the battles, when silence becomes more dangerous.